Hashtag BTS of an editorial hairdresser. Glamour, fashion, fame. But what's really behind the glossy pages and backstage passes? In this episode, we take you behind the scenes of the editorial world, what it takes to make it, who holds the power, and whether the dream still matches the reality. We talk team politics, pay-to-play culture, brand gatekeeping, and how much the game has changed for independent stylists. Dirty. On this episode, James Pecis, Lena Ott, Damalia Majid, and Amy Farid. Rhymes and rhymes. This was such an eye-opening experience. I thought I kind of knew a little bit since I grew up in the world of Bumble and Bumble, which was such an editorial force. But turns out I really didn't know what really goes on behind the scenes when it comes to the world of editorial hairdressing. Now, you, Christian, you are involved in a lot of editorial work with magazines and celebrity, so you probably have a good handle on this episode.
Yeah, this is an episode that I'm really excited about because I think that a lot of us decide to become a part of the hair industry in some way, shape, or form, have at some point in our lives been impacted or allured by fashion industry, the fashion publications, watching fashion shows happening on television or on YouTube or wherever you happen to see it. So to, actually take the time to celebrate the stylists that are behind the scenes making these gorgeous, glamorous ideas a reality, and also to realize that there's more to it than what we may imagine. I think that for me, when I was younger and when I was a teenager, there was a show on MTV called House of Style. Do you remember House of Style? Yes. And it was Cindy Crawford or Shalom Harlow or Amber Valletta, whoever was the host at that point in time, was going backstage and doing a lot of interviews with models and hairdressers and all these movers and shakers in the fashion world. And it just looked like this really fabulous, incredible world that I wanted to be a part of. And I feel so grateful that I do happen to be a part of it now and have been now for over 15 years. And there, I think, as with anything, you have one perception of something and then you actually get into the nitty-gritty of it and you realize there's a whole other reality. And I feel like that's what this episode is going to be about today, is exploring that, not just the behind the scenes, kiki glam stuff, but also just the reality of what it is to be in this world.
Well, I always knew it was niche. Obviously, being from New York and working in New York, it is the capital when it comes to fashion. And I see a lot of independent education workshops around backstage, editorial. But I was curious, who's taking these classes? And also, how easy is it to get into this? I know that it requires an incredible amount of work. You really have to be dedicated to the foundations, to learning. And what I learned from this episode was it's a lot about relationships. It's a lot of passion, collaboration. There's some politics involved. There's some pay-to-play opportunities. And is it all it's cracked up to be? So let's get into it. Dirty. Welcome to hashtag BTS of an editorial hairdresser. We're talking to all the industry pros to get the real on what really goes on backstage. And I'm so excited to have our next guest, Amy Farid. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Well, Amy, our paths have crossed many moons ago in our days at Bumble and Bumble. We were there at the same time. And I don't know how many times we had an opportunity to work together, but I definitely saw you around behind the scenes doing some cool shit. And it's really incredible to see your journey and your career blossom. I follow you on social media, and I always love seeing what you're going to do next.
Thank you so much. I have a podcast called Let's Have a Powwow. I'm reclaiming that term that is used flippantly all around studios in New York City in professional settings. You could just say, can we have a little chat? Can we have a meeting? Do we have to say, let's have a powwow? Because there are some people and tribes that there's very sacred things that happen in those settings. And, when we're on set for, a major commercial brand and you just want to talk about jeans, we don't need to have a powwow. We can just have a talk. It's just so ingrained in our, American ignorant vocabulary, vernacular that we're just like, oh, it's fine.
Well, speaking about all the things that you do and your journey, how did you break into the editorial space? And was there a pivotal moment that shifted everything where you're like, this is it?
So I got on a Greyhound bus in the year 2000 and left Wichita, Kansas, and moved to New York City. And I didn't have a job. I only had heard of one place called Bumble and Bumble because in fashion magazines, they would credit it. I would grab the girls in the front and do these weird experimental looks on them, and then messy things. I love like messy, carefree, done, undone. That's always been my thing and for them. So Michael Gordon came in once and saw the receptionist and was like, who did your hair? So he comes up to me and he says, I love what you've been doing to the front desk receptionist hair. It's what my envision has been all along. And I was like, okay, work. And he said, would you like to come and assist Rolando on the Make It Big shoot?
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
the thickening product.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was
so
such
iconic.
And it was iconic Make
yes.
It Big, all the photos with all the screen sirens with the Make It Big, like literally. And he's like, it's going to be at my house and you can come and assist. I was like, yes. I'm like living my best life. Like, let's go. So that was it. And then Michael saw me for what I was. And I was hungry and I wanted this.
I love what you said too about and doing the front desk and being that, there's so much you can do with your downtime when you're not busy at the salon. And you really made an opportunity happen for yourself because you were hungry. And it's those moments like that could change your whole trajectory. I love that.
Yeah.
So now that you are wildly popular editorial hairdresser in print, fashion, runway, tell us a little bit more about your indigenous identity and how that culture influences your work.
So I am Osage, my tribe. I'm Wajaji in our language. And I mean, I bring indigeneity with me everywhere because it's who I am. But with that comes respect in a certain style, with hair, with energy. When I worked with Lily Gladstone, she made a whole movie with Martin Scorsese about my tribe. Her manager was like, oh, yeah, she would like to work with you. I worked with her on an Emmys thing last year. Like that part of it's like, yes, like exposure to, having indigenous people around you, working with you is amazing because it is so uncommon.
There are a few through lines that I'm hearing in your journey, and it starts with passion. It starts with you having this innate desire to create, letting your creativity flow through you, even in the moments when nothing else seems to be going on. You turn a reception around and do an up twist on them or whatever. Like it's just something that flows through you and everything, but it's also your wanting to collaborate with other people. And I feel like those elements, your constant creative surges of passionate energy and sharing it with others is really what's helped you continue to build this incredible career.
Thank you. Yes, creation. We are all vessels for creation. If we do not open our vessel, and I'm like looking at the
Kabbalah.
The Kabbalah right now, because it is very that right now. Opening this vessel, we are all vessels for creativity. God, or the creator, wants us to be creative, and we have to get those out. Once we stop being creative and stunt that's when we start getting bad. We do bad things because we're not having an outlet of that, So being creative, writing, photography, reading a book, anything that can allow me to just get it out of my body. And collaboration is one of my favorite things. I love to collaborate, especially with friends.
Dirty Hair Podcast is all about bringing unique perspectives together. And so when we were doing this episode, the BTS of an editorial hairdresser, I had to speak to an editorial colorist. Talk about niche. And so who better to speak to than Lena Ott, editorial colorist of pretty much everybody and owner of Sweet Caroline Salon here in New York City. And here's what she had to say when we talked about getting credit as an editorial colorist in the magazines. Y'all, this is some dirty hair, so get ready.
Hey, Lena, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Erin. Yes, I am flattered and honored to be here.
Well, I can't wait to get into it. So let's just dive in. We are bringing up this episode because we're really trying to shed a light on what it's really like to be an editorial hairdresser. And we're going even more niche when we get an opportunity to talk with you about being an editorial colorist. And editorial colorists rarely get top billing, unfortunately, in an editorial. It's usually the hairstylist or the makeup artist in the spotlight. Why do you think that is? And does it ever feel like your role gets minimized?
Well, it definitely happens, but I've learned it's not always intentional. I would say, first off, there's always a hairstylist and makeup artist on set. It's a given. And often, models are chosen or, casted and they're expected to come as is, and they're kind of like already expected to show up with, no roots or camera ready in that way. So therefore, a hair colorist isn't always needed on set or involved.
But a lot of it goes into, would you say then an editorial hairdresser that's working on a project that has a vision, collaborating with, said fashion designer, then they would contract you to pre-do the color? Is that where most of the color comes in, not on set, but in a pre-done situation?
Right. Often it is done the day before just because of timing and time constraints. Right. So then, and I think, I've thought about this a lot, and the times where credit is given and then times where credit is not. And it could be with the exact same team, exact same production. And I think a lot of it comes down to the person adding the credit is pulling from the call sheet. And maybe I'm not on the call sheet, or a colorist isn't on there because the work was done the day before.
Yeah, that's interesting because, you look at these magazines and credits and it's this long line of production, and color has such impact. So it's interesting to hear how it all gets sorted or how it's planned and where
it lands. There's even a very big publication that straight out says they don't credit colorists.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some dirty hair, girl. Dirty.
I know. And yet your call, the initial call is okay, it's for credit, letting there's not going to, there's no pay, there's no budget, it's for credit. And yet I'll know that I'm not going to get credit based off of what magazine we're discussing. And then that credit just becomes the hairstylist giving me a shout out on Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think that's about? What's the beef with colorists? Why? That is so strange.
It is strange. And color and I think set production, there's two things that they just will not credit that are involved with on set. then the hairstylist producer said, listen, they told me straight out they don't credit color. And I was like, oh.
Wow. So like what's in it for the colorist other than your deep passion for creating artwork and having, your work seen? And I know it's not always about the credit, but now if you're not even getting paid or credited, then that is strange. Well, we might have to dig deeper into that.
Yeah, it is the deep passion. I'll do it anyway because of the relationship. And and then also it's always something iconic. It's always amazing. So I'm like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
I learned something from it.
And a lot of wig work is used everywhere in editorial, and that's like a huge craft of its own. So what did you have to learn, the rigor, the technical training?
Well, way back, at Bumble, I started playing around with extensions and wigs because it was it was like a creative outlet that could kind of be my own. Like I didn't have to have live human guinea pigs, to like push out ideas. And it is a completely different art because the hair is processed and goes through this like acid wash and, all these things till it's, the color that you go and buy. And then to color on top of that, it doesn't take like our hair. So it's like completely different formulations. Sometimes you can even use like not even hair dye, you could just, but it just went from like playing with it and doing it more and more to becoming a skill set.
Yeah.
And then I guess, it's just like an evolution of people talking or seeing something. You put one thing out, maybe on a test shoot with some friends, and then someone else sees it. I know you just had Amy on here, and we did a shoot. Myself, the photographer was Ryan Michael Kelly. Robert Green did makeup, and I did this really great red wig, like a kind of red that most models would never dye their hair to. Right. And from that, Bjork actually saw it and saved it as a reference and contacted the agency I was at. And then that's like how I got to work with her the first time. And
so cool.
But then in the middle of that, just coloring them until it becomes something that you just really understand. And then you're asked to do this and then you achieve it. You just don't stop until it's right. You know what I mean? I could be there well into the AM hours if that's what it takes. And you just keep going until you nail it. And then the next time, and it just grows from there.
So do you feel like with this explosion in celebrity culture that as a colorist, there's a bit more opportunity, notoriety, or ways to build your book or build relationships where you don't have to go through maybe an editorial hairdresser or a fashion brand, that you can get these clients directly from the source?
Sure. I mean, with social media or like, yeah, I do think people are like surfing around and looking at things and seeing, like, it's like a way for somebody to sort of like see your portfolio in a sense. And they could easily DM and say, hey, I got this, and or like come in for a visitor. No, for sure.
Dial 876.
Let's check in with James Pecis, who is arguably one of the most known hairdressers of the moment happening in fashion right now, editorial hairstylist and the founder of Blu Green.
Welcome, James, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is cool.
Yeah, good. So speaking of your journey, right, going from assisting to leading, was there a moment where it all started to click for you, where you said to yourself, like, okay, like this is happening, like we're going full force in this direction?
Yeah, there's actually a couple different parts, I guess, of my hairdressing career where I felt that way. It started really when I moved from San Francisco to New York and just getting to work with the Bumble team. It was such a cool energy and a cool thing happening at that time that you were a part of, and a bunch of rad hairdressers were there. And then when I was asked to be a first assistant to Jimmy Paul, that was another moment where I felt like, oh wow, this is happening, because those positions as a first assistant are coveted, but you have to be chosen for it. And if that person chooses you, then you have to step up and take that role. But when that happened, I knew that was a moment where I was like, okay, this is happening. And then the next time I felt that way was when I finished assisting and I moved to London to kind of really start my career there and push myself creatively. And that was when I felt like, okay, now I have an agent, I'm on my own. This is real. And I wasn't booking any jobs and I was poor, but it was I was making it happen. And then there was another moment after years of just like hustling and doing every small picture I could possibly do, where I was asked to do a cover with the photographers Inez and Benood for French Vogue. And when that happened, my career literally changed overnight.
I think everyone who has the dream of making it on their own, going independent, has certain levels of struggles and sacrifices along the way. Are there any that you want to share, that people might not see, since, editorial, I feel like, is so glamorized. We live in a very celebrity culture right now. So what don't people see that you had to go through to get to where you're at now?
I think the thing is that it's so highly competitive and there's only a certain amount of seats at the table, that if it is something of interest to you, you really have to just give it everything. And when I say that, I mean that I missed weddings, funerals, graduations, vacations. I put my work in front of my friends and my family. And these aren't things that I'm proud to say I did. It was very taxing on my relationships. But that's what I did, and it was successful. Now, I don't think that needs to be for everybody. There's many different paths in this business. There's celebrity, there's fashion, there's education, and there's different ways to hold on to your sanity and your well-being. But I look at the top people in this industry, and they've had to sacrifice a tremendous amount, and that's kind of the payoff. The other thing that isn't really talked about is that you're only as remembered from the last thing you did. So you're constantly trying to stay relevant, constantly trying to do that next editorial. And it sounds like a lot of fun, but it is a tremendous amount of work. You're constantly in transit, to say, like literally. And your work becomes your life. And I just remember when I started, I just thought, if someone else is willing to give 100%, I have to be willing to give like 110%. And every time I felt like taking a break, I thought I needed to push a little bit further to get in front of the other people that are willing to work just as hard as me. So,
Yeah, truth. So you said in transit and things are constantly moving. Can you expand, maybe give us a few examples of what you mean by that?
I think the biggest change would just be that we look at images differently than when I started. And whether that's good or bad, it's just the way it is. I used to get a magazine and I would look through it multiple times. What I was seeing in the magazine was from fashion shows that was 6 months previous. There was a bit of a delay. And I think we just looked at images and we studied them and we obsessed over them. And those images would really stick in our brains. And now we wake up in the morning and we turn on our phone and we go through 500 images in 5 minutes. So I think it just doesn't impact us the same way. That being said, even though magazines might not have as much relevance as they used to, what I find super interesting is young people using social media as a platform to showcase their work that otherwise would not be seen. So maybe they don't have a photographer, a professional photographer, makeup artist, and really big models, but they can do a really cool creative project, shoot it themselves, and put it up for people to see. And I think it's kind of amazing that there's been a lot of people discovered that way.
And that was something that I was talking with Lena about, in just how important relationships are and building those relationships in the industry, and what necessarily doesn't happen on set, but behind the scenes doesn't necessarily get the same level of acknowledgement and credit.
Lena and I have a long relationship back at Bumble and Bumble, and she has a phenomenal career. And the really special thing about Lena is that she put herself out there. As a colorist, no one's going to just come knocking on your door, or highly unlikely knock on your door and say, we want you to do something for an editorial. Lena would take a wig, $1,000 wig, color it, tie-dye color it, and just give it to me and say, hey, if this works, use it. And I would put it in my bag. And I had one in my bag that she gave me for a couple of years. And finally it came out in a shoot for Comme des Garçons. And it's one of my favorite images ever. I still have the wig today. And I think that really tells a lot about Lena, about how she was very proactive to make sure that she was investing in that wig to get it into my hands. And now, she does all of Guido's stuff. She really is a powerhouse behind the curtain that's doing incredible work.
When it comes to working as an editorial hairstylist, it's all about coming together for that final image, that 15 minutes on the runway, making an impact, something that people remember and burns in your brain and lasts. And what's really unique about James is not only is he a key stylist, but he's also created a product line. And I want to hear from him on the impact that's had in his career.
Okay, so Blu Green completely was born from a desire to have clean products that I can use for my work that decrease the amount of plastic that was in the packaging. So it's a performance product line that is free of using any plastic packaging. We're using different types of science to figure out alternative ways to create the products that I need. There was a couple of problems we had backstage where there's a product that we were using a lot in Paris that was giving hairdressers bloody noses. And we don't know why, but we know that a lot of people, and it's one of the biggest brands in the business.
And speaking of Blu Green, Blu Green was created by James Pecis because he wanted high-performing products for work that are toxin-free, don't come in plastic packaging, and don't compromise in any way. At Blu Green, we believe that beauty shouldn't come at the cost of your health or the planet. That's why we've created salon-quality, high-performance hair care and styling products that are clean and sustainable as they are effective. You can purchase Blu Green at www.blueandgreen.com. Use code DIRTYHAIR to receive 20% off Blu Green, limited to one per customer. You can follow Blu Green at Blu Green Beauty on Instagram. Dirty. For those of you who are looking to break into the world of editorial hairdressing, it seems like there's been a traditional way. We spoke with James, we spoke with Amy, we spoke with Lena. They all started at Bumble and Bumble. They started as assistants. They said yes to different projects. They collaborated, they innovated, and really worked their way up. Would you agree that's kind of the traditional way to get involved in this kind of work?
Absolutely. I would say that up until maybe the past 7 to 10 years, the way that you had to get in was based on who you knew or where you happened to be working in a salon. And so the traditional, we'll put that in air quotes, the traditional way of getting into editorial work is either, contacting the artist's agent and just saying, hey, I would love to work on their team backstage. And then the artists selecting you to be a part of their team and then them putting you on their payroll. The whole climate backstage has changed a lot, and it's now being sponsored by a lot of brands. And so there's an opportunity for people to get to work backstage now by not having to navigate the behind the scenes and figuring out who the people are that you need to call or DM to get in with the right person. You can actually have direct access by paying to do it, which in a way is almost like signing up to take a class where you are being thrown to the trenches and being forced to use techniques that probably you don't get to use every day behind the chair. And that's one of the attractive aspects of working backstage, is not just the fashion element, but also the fact that you get to be challenged as a stylist.
It's so exciting that there's more ways, more than ever, to enter the world of editorial hairdressing. I had the opportunity to speak with Damalia Majid. She is the founder of Damalia & Company and is a lead stylist for a production company called The Lab. Let's tune into Damalia to see how this hierarchy and how this structure works. It's pay to play. Is it a scam? Is it not?
So let's get into it. Let's get dirty, Damalia.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And I'm so interested to learn more about your role in editorial, because in some of our previous conversations, this was all kind of new to me, this unique company and entry point that you have into the world of editorial. So as more and more stylists are entering the world by joining different agency-led teams, there's different entryways, relationships, in who you know, being on a team, but some of it is still a mystery. So can you explain to us, how does this structure work? Is there a hierarchy? How did you get involved? What should artists know if they want to get involved in an editorial team that's agency-led? So give us some dirt.
Well, pretty much. I have been in the industry for about 30 years. I've done a little bit of everything. As far as Fashion Week is concerned, I want to say probably about 2015, 2016, a friend of mine had invited me, and, she was like, hey, we're doing New York Fashion Week. Would you like to come along? And I was like, oh, okay, well, let me see how this goes, because I've always, was fascinated with fashion and stuff like that, especially with growing up. Doing my own little things in fashion and stuff. And from that point on, I was just infatuated. I loved it. I was like, this is what I want to do. Getting involved really with working with an agency, it was all just by chance. I had joined the team about 2 seasons ago. They invited me to come to Paris Fashion Week. I did that, and the production company, The Lab, they really enjoyed what I did and seeing how I worked and, was there and mingling and networking and stuff. And they invited me back and asked me to be a lead, which was a shocker, because I was like, okay, well, and they said, they followed my page and they liked what I did and liked what they seen. And I said, okay, well, I'll do this. I'll work it and see where it takes me, because cosmetology takes you down many different roads.
What is being a lead hairstylist for an agency or production company like The Lab? What does that entail?
Whew. Well, being a lead, one, you have to build a team. Okay, let me just roll back some. So agency-led teams are designed to support the production company and lead artists who are responsible for the entire look and the flow of a show. There's usually a lead hair artist or makeup artist, assistant leads, and then the hair and makeup team. The lead sets the creative vision, works directly with designers and producers, and then trains the teams on executing the vision of what the designer is looking for. Like I said, I got involved after years of building my craft, networking and working with production companies who trusted me with those leadership roles.
I didn't really know that part of being a lead hairstylist was this whole idea of recruitment and building your team. And that's really interesting, especially for people who want to get into editorial. This could be a great route for them to go.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of banter, I guess, on social media about, being part of an editorial team and, you know, the opportunity, a pay to play, a certain level of investment. Some people think it's a scam. Some people see the value in it. From your point of view, how does this show up in your world? Is it part of an investment? Is it something else entirely? Like, what is the investment typically? Does it eventually dissipate and you don't pay? Like, how does it all work?
That's a good one. Because of course I've done all three. Okay. I've done I got paid, I did the volunteer, and I've done the fee part of it. The fee part is what I do. Okay. For me, it's gotten, editorial shoots. For me, it's gotten me to work behind stage. It's not gatekeeped. It's not all on who you know. It's not all, well, let me teach you how to do it. But you're going to pay me how to do it, type of thing. You take my classes and all of that. No, I wanted to get in. But as far as doing a pay, which is, the fee, and it can vary. It can go from $250, it can go all the way up to $2,000. It just really depends on what you're, getting out of it. I tell people, how is it a scam? How is it a scam if I'm paying to work shows? Yes, I'm traveling, like I said, Paris, New York, Milan, looking to go to Singapore and stuff like that next, going to Dubai, working their fashion shows and stuff. If I'm getting what I'm putting into it, I see no problem with it myself. And like I said, it's a production company, and, it pays to put together a show. You have to pay the production costs. You got to pay logistics. You got to, do advertising. All of that goes into what that fee goes towards. You got to pay for the venues, which I found out are very expensive.
You're preaching to the choir, talking about event production and all the costs. List goes on and on and on. People don't realize how much a production costs.
Right. And, and they're like, well, where does the fee go? It goes towards production costs. It goes towards everything that you want to see, the glitz and glamour of it. As far as doing a pay to play, I don't mind. As long as I'm getting what I am putting out of it, it's a networking opportunity. But I do tell people, do your due diligence and see who that production company is. Are they putting out quality work?
It really seems like it's an investment in yourself and the opportunities that it can lead to. And then it's up to you what you do
with it,
with the opportunity. Exactly. Yeah. And, that's interesting. And I think that's kind of cool that there's different entryways, because it seems like, to be paid, obviously a lot more hoops, a lot more relationships, politics, and who to get to that point. It almost seems inaccessible for a lot of people.
Right.
Not to take away from anyone who is at that level, but just in getting there, it's a different journey. And then volunteers from a lot of the now paid editorial hairdressers, it's like, that's how they got there. They did it all for free. And they really value the experience and working towards that final result, that moment, whether it be a photograph, whether it be the runway, the 15 minutes. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. I don't even do hair.
I'd love to hear your perspective on advice, especially for women, people of color, Indigenous women.
Well, number one, keep going. Do your research, do your work, learn how to do a round brush blow dry. If you do not know how to do a round brush blow dry, you need to learn. The base, the foundation is a round brush blow dry. Learn your foundations, people. It's so important. Men, women, especially women. Round brush blow dry will set you up for success. And remember that there is nobody like you. No one can do what you can do. No one can do what you can do. That's one of the greatest things someone told me once. And once you realize your self-worth, and that comes with age too, especially if we grew up in dysfunctional homes. It's, first get therapy, then learn to round brush, blow dry. But if you know your
order of operations, y'all, therapy, round brush, blow dry.
Yeah, thank you very much. T. Yeah, but once you realize your self-worth and realize, oh my God, I am this special person. Nobody else can do what I'm doing. No one else can do what you do. There are things that happen to us where we could be up for big jobs and they don't always happen for us, or we face rejection a lot, and rejection is God's protection. And I heard that one time at this crazy part of my life, and I called my best friend Lena Ott, and I was going through the gigs hardcore, and I said, girl, and she said, you know what, rejection is God's protection. And I was like, girl, that literally has stuck with me. So if you get up for gigs and you don't get them, it's okay. It wasn't meant to be.
For anyone dreaming of this path, is there any piece of advice you wish someone gave you before you started?
Piece of advice. Well, for one thing, like while you're doing all this, and if something doesn't go right, like you get a really great opportunity and something doesn't go well, or you just quite don't hit it, it will come back around again. It always goes in circles, and you'll get that opportunity back again in time. And maybe a bonus tip would be in your kit, no matter what, like if you're brought in to do a brunette gloss that day, still always have black, red, bleach, and some creative color in your kit, because it is guaranteed to have a change of vision, or they're going to pop up with a wig and ask you to make it jet black, or they're going to ask you to bleach out somebody's eyebrows. It will happen. So even if they say it's just a brown gloss, always have those items in your kit.
What I'm gaining from a lot of these conversations is the collaboration and the final result, trying to remove the ego out of it and delivering for either the client or the final, image.
Ego is very, very difficult. And I was very humbled when I was working with Jimmy. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I went from doing really well to cleaning the cords of his curling irons and blow dryers. And the thing is, I learned so much from him, and it's a priceless education. You can't pay for that education. But it was tough, and it was really tough for me, and it was tough for my ego. But it was, you have to break it down, because in the business, you can't let your ego get ahead of you. It will completely destroy you.
So speaking of teams and your recruiting, when you're building a team for a show in Paris, Milan, what really stands out?
Are they supporting one another? I look for more of a team camaraderie type of thing. No one, and I let everybody know, no one is better than the other person, because there's always that next stylist that's going to come in and take your spot. So let's start off, ground zero. Everybody's on a, even playing field. Let's get this job done.
It's all about that collaboration and seeing the final product and being part of this creative machine. That is fashion, darling. So, yes, I love it.
This was such a cool episode. I feel like I learned so much about what it really takes to become an editorial hairstylist. And for some, it's not about the credits, which is lucky for them, because sometimes they're just not going to get it. I mean, what Lena said was just completely mind-boggling, that certain publications flat out said, we're not going to be crediting the colorist, that it's only about the hairstylist. I mean, what the actual fuck?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy to me as well. It is fairly common, though, to be asked to work for free. That's the thing that when I got into this side of things, I was really shocked by. In fact, I even recently heard an interview with Sam McKnight, who's like major. And he even talked about how even today he still is not really getting paid for most of the covers that he's doing, which is kind of wild if you think about it. But essentially, the work that we're doing that gets put into publications is what helps give us promotion to then get other jobs that are going to be paying, which is more the commercial side of things. So it is really interesting that, you know, a publication says that they're not going to pay, but Lena does it anyway. And I think that speaks to her passion and her love of it. And also when a friend calls and says, hey, I'd love you to collaborate with me, you know, not even worrying about the pay, but just knowing that you're getting a chance to collaborate with a friend is all that you need. That's the payment enough.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the takeaways I have from this is that to be an editorial hairdresser, you really have to be a special breed. You can't be afraid of hard work. You can't let your ego get in the way of it. You have to be willing to sacrifice payment, credits for the bigger picture, for that collaboration, for that impact that you can be a part of. And it sounds like for the most part, those that are doing it, they're willing to make that sacrifice and they're willing to go that extra mile because it's what fuels them.
Yeah, it's really just about the passion and the love for the craft.
But how does that change? Do you think that would change? Like these fashion houses, publications to start delivering for the artists that they hire for these jobs?
It's a good question. I know that publications are definitely declining in terms of their revenue.
I wonder also where this whole, you know, there's many parts to editorial. There's like the fashion route, there's photo shoots, runway, and now with celebrity and influencer, like social media, that's like a whole other area of revenue. So I wonder how that plays into it as well, because you hear, you know, certain influencers, like they're making a killing, making all that money, getting all these brand deals and sponsorships. And then you have these hardworking artists who have like blood, sweat, and tears their whole career and, you know, are thankful for a credit. So I'm interested to see how this all plays out with the rise of influencer and celebrity culture. If that might be a direction, maybe editorial hairdressers can go into celebrity if there's more money or credit or opportunity to show your work. Oh, I worked with this client. They DM'd me. Someone else saw it. Oh, I mean, you know, you work with celebrities. What is it like? Is there a difference between celebrity work and working backstage on a team?
Is there a difference between the two? Absolutely. They're completely different beasts. One pays better than the other. Working with celebrities typically is probably, I'd say, some of the best paying work in the industry. And that's the work that helps to fuel you and fund you so that you can spend your days off doing test shoots with your friends. And that's what actually is one of my favorite things is a makeup artist will call me or a photographer will call me and say, hey, we're doing a test shoot. Would you want to do hair for it? Here are the dates. Here's the model. And that's the time when you get to come in and collaborate with other artists. The models are usually game too because they're going to get to do something wild and have something really fun for their book. So that's when the creativity really surges and bubbles up to the surface. And when I come away from a test shoot, I oftentimes am like riding this high for like hours. It's hard for me. If I finish in the evening, it's hard for me to fall asleep at night. And so it's kind of like this balance of like, all right, so I'm not getting paid for these days, but what I'm getting is that creative satisfaction and that feeling of being a part of something. And then the work that I do with celebrities is also really fun because usually working with celebrities can be a lot of fun and you get to do all kinds of fun stuff and meet cool people. And that also helps to pay the rent, so it all balances out.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's not about the money. It's about the creative vision, the collaboration, and creating.
Yeah.
That's why you all are just such artists. And that's why there's people like me at the Left Brain Group to be your agents and to fight for your rights and your pay. So I guess we're still in a job.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness we have you. Like and subscribe to Dirty Hair Podcast, streaming on all platforms.
I'm Erin Dietrich. Follow Dirty Hair on Instagram at Dirty Hair Podcast, me at Queen of Indie _, and the Left Brain Group at the Left Brain Group.
And be sure to follow me, Christian Van Bremen, on Instagram at Christian, CHRISTIAAN. Yes, there's 2 A's. Van Bremen, VANBREMEN. See you in cyberspace.
Keep it dirty. Dirty Hair was created and editorially directed by Erin Dietrich. This has been a See the Tree production with producer Christian Dietrich. Editing by Dietrich Teschner and Robert Granata. Sound engineering also by Robert Granata. Music by Christian Van Bremen and Robert Granata.
Dirty.